My fiancé's family ambushed me with a prenup, his mother smirking, just ensuring you walk away empty-handed, while he said nothing. But when I inherited $50 million 0 cents, their faces turned to ash, and secrets started unraveling. The night my brakes failed on that winding Pacific Coast highway, I thought I was going to die. The wheels shook in my hands as my old Jeep Cherokee skidded toward the cliff's edge, the ocean below glinting like a dark promise under the moonlight. I slammed my foot on the pedal, but it sank uselessly to the floor. My heart pounded louder than the screeching tires, and all I could think was, "This isn't an accident." I yanked the steering wheel, swerving just in time to avoid plunging into the abyss. The Jeep lurched to a stop on the gravel shoulder, dust swirling like ghosts in my headlights. I sat there, gasping, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip my phone to call for help. That was the moment I realized my life wasn't just a tech startup hustle anymore. It was a high-stakes game, and someone was playing for keeps. I'm Lila Bennett, 30 years old, a tech founder from Boise, Idaho, who traded small-town simplicity for the glittering, cutthroat world of San Francisco's Silicon Valley. I never imagined I'd be dodging death on a coastal road or caught in a web of love, betrayal, and secrets that would make a thriller writer blush. But here I am, telling you my story, not because it's glamorous, but because it's real, raw, messy, and full of lessons I learned the hard way. If you're reading this, maybe you're from the Midwest like me, or maybe you're sipping coffee in Sydney or scrolling on your phone in London. Wherever you are, stick with me. This is a tale of standing up to power, finding your worth, and surviving when the odds are stacked against you. Let me take you back to where it all began, to a life that feels like a distant memory now. I grew up in Boise, in a modest ranch-style house with a creaky porch and a backyard just big enough for a tire swing. My dad was a mechanic, his hands always stained with grease, his laugh loud enough to fill the room. My mom was a nurse, working night shifts at St. Luke's, her gentle voice a balm for any scraped knee or bruised ego. We weren't rich, far from it. Family vacations meant piling into our beat-up minivan for road trips to Yellowstone or the Oregon coast, where we'd camp under the stars and roast marshmallows until they caught fire. Christmas was handmade gifts and my mom's famous pecan pie, not stacks of designer boxes under the tree. I learned early that happiness doesn't come with a price tag, a lesson that would save me later in ways I couldn't have predicted. In high school, I was the nerdy kid who loved coding as much as I loved sketching in my notebook. I'd spend hours in the library teaching myself Python while my friends were at football games. Boise State University was my ticket out of small-town life, where I majored in computer science and dreamed of building something big, something that could change the world. After graduation, I packed my life into 2 suitcases and moved to San Francisco, the epicenter of tech dreams and sky-high rents. I rented a shoebox apartment in the Mission District, ate instant ramen for dinner, and poured every ounce of my energy into founding Spark Vibe, a cybersecurity startup aimed at protecting small businesses from data breaches. It wasn't glamorous. Think late nights coding in a cramped co-working space fueled by cheap coffee and sheer stubbornness. But it was mine. Spark Vibe started small, just me and a couple of freelancers, but we gained traction with a niche app that detected phishing scams in real time. I won a regional tech award, got a write-up in TechCrunch, and landed a contract with a mid-sized retailer. But success came with a catch. The bigger we grew, the more attention we drew from competitors. I started noticing odd things, glitches in our code, delayed client emails, whispers of a rival firm sniffing around our patents. I brushed it off as paranoia. After all, I was a nobody from Idaho, not exactly a prime target for corporate espionage. Or so I thought. That's when I met Ethan Warwick. It was April, at a glitzy tech gala in San Francisco's Palace Hotel, where I was presenting Spark Vibe's app to potential investors. I was there in a borrowed dress, adjusting a banner I designed myself to save costs, when he approached. Ethan was impossible to miss, tall, with tousled dark hair and a smile that could charm a shark. He wore a tailored blazer but drove a beat-up Tesla, a contradiction that intrigued me. "This app interface," he said, pointing to my demo screen. "It's clean, intuitive, like it's telling a story without shouting. Who designed it?" I blushed, caught off guard. "I did. It's supposed to feel human, not just functional." He grinned, and we talked for an hour about code, user experience, even the ethics of data privacy. Ethan wasn't what I expected from a billionaire venture capitalist, heir to the Warwick dynasty, whose name adorned tech incubators and university halls across Silicon Valley. The Warwicks were royalty in this world, their fortune built on early investments in tech giants like Google and Uber, cemented by strategic alliances and a knack for staying untouchable. Ethan, though, seemed different. He asked for my number, and I hesitated. Guys like him didn't date women like me, women who shopped at thrift stores and coded in dive bars. But his interest felt real, not like a playboy's charm offensive. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall taqueria in the Mission, my choice, to see if he'd balk. He didn't. "Best tacos I've had in years," he said, wiping salsa off his chin with a napkin, his eyes crinkling with genuine delight. "You're not like the women I usually meet, Lila. You're real." That was the Ethan I fell for, charismatic but grounded, a man who could debate encryption algorithms with the same passion he brought to discussing indie bands. We fit together, like lines of perfectly debugged code, seamless and natural. For 6 months, we built a world of our own. Late-night coding sessions, weekend hikes in Marin, stolen kisses in the fog of Ocean Beach. He'd drive us around in his rattling Tesla, blasting the killers, and I'd forget he was a Warwick, heir to a fortune that could buy my entire hometown. But there were cracks, small at first. Ethan avoided talking about his family, brushing off my questions with vague excuses. "They're intense," he'd say, changing the subject. "Let's keep this just us for now." I didn't push, too caught up in the glow of new love to see the warning signs. Then came the first blow. Spark Vibe was on the verge of a breakthrough, a $2.00 M contract with a national retail chain that could put us on the map. I was in my tiny office, tweaking our app's algorithm, when I got a call from my lead developer. "Lila, something's wrong. Our test server's down, and the backup's corrupted." I raced to the co-working space, heart sinking as I saw the damage. Critical code deleted, our prototype app wiped. It wasn't a glitch. It was sabotage. Someone had breached our system, and the timing was too perfect. Right after we'd outbid a rival firm, Cyberpeak, known for playing dirty. I spent 48 hours rebuilding what we could, fueled by energy drinks and panic. Ethan was there, bringing me coffee, telling me I was stronger than this setback. But when I mentioned Cyberpeak, his eyes flickered with something... guilt? Fear? He changed the topic, and I let it slide, too exhausted to dig deeper. Then came the car incident. I was driving back from a client meeting in Half Moon Bay, the coastal highway twisting like a snake under the stars. My Jeep was old but reliable, serviced just a week prior. Yet when I pressed the brake to slow for a curve, nothing happened. The pedal sank, useless, as the car picked up speed. My pulse roared in my ears as I wrestled the steering wheel, the cliff's edge looming closer. I downshifted, yanked the handbrake, and swerved onto the shoulder, gravel spraying as I skidded to a stop, inches from disaster. I sat there, shaking, the ocean's roar mocking my near-death escape. The tow truck driver later confirmed it. My brake lines had been cut. Not worn, not frayed, cut. Someone wanted me out of the picture, and the list of suspects was growing. Ethan was at my side within an hour, his face pale as he hugged me. "Thank God you're okay," he whispered. But I caught his hesitation when I mentioned the sabotage at work. "You think the two are connected?" he asked, too quickly. I didn't have proof, but my gut screamed that CyberPeak, or someone closer, was involved. I started locking my office door, double-checking my car, and sleeping with a baseball bat by my bed. San Francisco's shine was fading, replaced by a city of shadows where ambition and betrayal walked hand in hand. 6 months into our relationship, Ethan finally took me to meet his family at their Napa Valley estate, a sprawling mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie about old money. The driveway was lined with cypress trees, the house glowing with chandeliers that probably cost more than my startup's annual budget. Eleanor Warwick greeted me at the door, her cashmere sweater and pearl earrings screaming understated wealth. "Lila, how charming to meet you," she said, her smile as cold as the marble floor. Her eyes scanned my thrift store dress, lingering just long enough to make her judgment clear. Richard Warwick, Ethan's father, barely looked up from his phone, muttering a greeting before returning to his stock alerts. Victoria, Ethan's sister, was the worst, her smirk practically audible as she asked, "That dress is so unique. Where did you find it?" I forced a smile, clutching my wineglass like a lifeline. Dinner was a masterclass in exclusion. They talked about yacht parties in Monaco, board meetings with tech titans, and private islands I'd never heard of. When I tried to join in, mentioning Spark Vibe's recent contract, Eleanor cut me off. "How quaint," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "A little startup must keep you so busy." Victoria chimed in, "You must tell me where you got those earrings. They're so eclectic." Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, but his silence spoke louder than his touch. He'd warned me they were protective after his ex, a former coder who'd sold family secrets to a tech blog, but this felt like more than caution. It was a deliberate snub. As we cleared the appetizer course, some unpronounceable dish that tasted like overpriced seaweed, I overheard Victoria whispering to her husband, Todd, about a family secret tied to Ethan's ex. Her words were hushed, but I caught, "She knew too much," and "we handled it." My skin prickled. Was this about the blog leak, or something darker? I filed it away, my coder's brain already debugging the mystery. Ethan drove us home in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They'll come around," he said finally, but I wasn't so sure. The Warwicks weren't just protective. They were guarding something, and I was starting to feel like a pawn in their game. Back in our loft, Ethan's world began bleeding into mine. He paid for the sleek apartment, insisting it was temporary until Spark Vibe took off. I hated relying on him, but with my startup bleeding cash, I had little choice. Eleanor sent a housewarming gift, a state-of-the-art security system with cameras that felt more like surveillance than protection. Her note read, "To keep your little venture safe." I gritted my teeth and wrote a thank you note, but the dig stung. My startup was my baby, built from sleepless nights and sheer will, and she'd reduced it to a hobby. Ethan proposed 3 months later, on the rooftop of a Soma skyscraper, the city lights sprawling below us like a digital dream. The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light without screaming wealth. "I want us to build something real," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "Not the fake world my family lives in." I said yes, my heart soaring, but doubts crept in like bugs in my code. Ethan's late-night calls with his family, always taken in another room, were becoming more frequent. He'd cancel plans last minute for family business, his demeanor shifting to something guarded, almost obedient, when his mother's name lit up his phone. Then came the second blow. I arrived at Spark Vibe's office to find the door ajar, papers scattered, and our prototype server smashed. Our core code, the heart of our phishing app, was gone. I called the police, but they found no fingerprints, no leads. The loss was catastrophic. Without that code, our contract was at risk, and Spark Vibe could fold. Ethan offered to connect me with his family's firm, Warwick Ventures, which had the resources to rebuild. "Now we can help," he said, but his eyes didn't meet mine. I declined, sensing a trap. If I let the Warwicks in, they'd own me, and Spark Fiber forever. The engagement dinner invitation came a week later, a summons to the Napa estate for what Eleanor called a family celebration. I should have known better. My gut churned as I chose a navy dress, professional but not flashy, hoping to blend in. Ethan was nervous, his usual charm replaced by a forced smile. "Just be yourself," he said, but it sounded like a plea. The estate was even more imposing at night, its columns looming like sentinels. Eleanor greeted me with an air kiss, her perfume sharp enough to cut glass. "Lila, that dress is so practical," she said, her eyes flicking to my scuffed flats. Richard shook my hand like I was a business acquaintance, while Victoria and Todd arrived late, fresh from a tech mogul's yacht party. "You wouldn't know them," Victoria said with a smirk, pouring herself champagne. The dinner was a gauntlet. They peppered me with questions about my family's finances, disguised as polite interest. "No investments? Not even a cabin in Tahoe?" Richard asked, feigning surprise. I explained that my parents had worked hard to buy their Boise home, but his nod was dismissive. By dessert, a lavender panna cotta I couldn't stomach, I was ready to bolt. That's when Eleanor slid a folder across the table, her smile sharp as a blade. "Before we get carried away with wedding plans," she said, "we have some business to address." The word prenuptial glared up at me in bold type. My stomach dropped. Richard explained, his tone bored. "It's standard for Warwick marriages. Protects our legacy." The document was brutal. No claim to Warwick assets, no alimony, no rights to anything, even my own startup's IP if we divorced. Worse, a confidentiality clause barred me from speaking about the family, with a $10.00 M penalty for breaches. I looked at Ethan, waiting for him to object, to say this was insane. He stared at his plate, jaw tight, silent. He'd known. He'd brought me here knowing they'd ambush me. Eleanor's voice was honeyed venom. "It's just to ensure you leave with what you brought, nothing more." Victoria's laugh cut through the silence. "If you love Ethan, this shouldn't be an issue, right?" I managed to croak. "I need a lawyer to review this." Victoria scoffed. "It's non-negotiable. Every Warwick spouse signs." Ethan finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "It's just a formality, Lila." But it wasn't. It was a power play, a message that I'd never be one of them. I closed the folder, my hands shaking. "I need time," I said, clinging to the last shred of my dignity. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eye. "Of course, dear. But we'll need it signed before any wedding plans proceed." The drive home was suffocating. Ethan tried to explain, but I exploded the moment we stepped into the loft. "You knew!" I shouted, tears burning my eyes. "You let them humiliate me." He ran a hand through his hair, his face pained. "I tried to talk them out of it, Lila. But this is how my family works. It's not personal." "Not personal?" I snapped. "Your mother called me a gold digger to my face, and you sat there." He pleaded. "They're protecting the Warwick legacy. It's bigger than us." But it wasn't bigger than me. I wasn't just some small-town girl anymore. I was a founder, a fighter, and I deserved better. The next morning, I found the cryptic email. Ethan had left his laptop open, and there it was, buried in his inbox, a message from his father about a contingency plan for the Bennett situation. My blood ran cold. Was this about the prenup or something worse? The break lines, the office break-in, Victoria's whispered family secret. It was all starting to connect. And I didn't like the picture it formed. I called Maya, my best friend since college, and spilled everything over coffee at a Mission District cafe. Her eyes narrowed as I described the dinner. Lila, that's not a prenup. It's a cage. And Ethan? He's either spineless or in on it. I wanted to argue, to defend the man I loved, but her words hit hard. What does your gut say? She asked. My gut was screaming, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. I took the prenup to Claire Voss, a family law attorney with a reputation for taking on tech titans. She read the document in her sleek downtown office, her expression darkening. Lila, this is a legal guillotine. It strips you of everything, your startup, your voice, your future. And this confidentiality clause, it's a muzzle with a $10.00 M fine if you break it. She leaned forward, her voice low. I've seen prenups, but this is personal. They want to control you. She suggested revisions, a sunset clause, protections for my IP, but warned, don't sign this as it stands. And watch your back. The Warwicks play dirty. That night, as Ethan slept, I lay awake, the prenup folder glaring at me from the counter. I loved him, but love wasn't enough when trust was crumbling. The next day, my phone rang with an unknown number. Lila Bennett? A crisp voice asked. This is Henry Tate from Tate & Associates. I'm handling the estate of your Aunt Marianne Tate. I frowned. Aunt Marianne? I barely knew her. She'd been a recluse, estranged from my mom after some family feud before I was born. She passed 6 months ago, Henry continued. You're named in her will. Can you come to our office? I almost hung up, too overwhelmed by Ethan and the prenup, but something, call it instinct, made me agree. The meeting with Henry Tate would change everything, but I didn't know it yet. As I drove to his office, my phone buzzed with another message from Eleanor. The wedding planner needs a deposit, Lila. Let's finalize the paperwork. The pressure was suffocating, and Ethan's silence was deafening. I was standing at a crossroads, caught between the man I loved and the life I'd built, with danger lurking in the shadows. Little did I know, the universe was about to throw me a curveball that would rewrite the rules of the game. The moment I walked away from that dinner table, leaving Ethan's engagement ring glinting under the Warwick's crystal chandelier, I felt a rush, like I'd just hacked the most secure server in Silicon Valley. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with something fiercer. Freedom. I'd stared down Eleanor Warwick's icy gaze, called out her family's power play, and dropped the bombshell of my $50 million 0 cents inheritance like a grenade. The shock on their faces. Eleanor's lips parted, Richard's phone forgotten, Victoria's champagne glass frozen mid-sip, was worth every second of humiliation they'd put me through. But as I stepped into the cool Napa Valley night, the gravel crunching under my heels, I knew this wasn't the end. The Warwicks didn't lose gracefully, and I'd just painted a target on my back. I'm Lila Bennett, the tech startup founder from Boise, Idaho, who went from scraping by to inheriting a fortune overnight. If you read Chapter 1, you know how I fell for Ethan Warwick, Silicon Valley's golden boy, only to be blindsided by his family's brutal prenup and a string of dangerous accidents. A cut-brake line, a trashed office, a black SUV trying to run us off the road. Now, with $50 million 0 cents from my estranged aunt's estate and a cryptic warning about powerful enemies, I was done playing nice. This is the story of how I fought back, unraveled secrets that shook me to my core, and learned that power isn't just about money. It's about knowing who you are when the world tries to break you. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into the chaos. Wherever you're reading from, San Francisco, London, or Sydney. This one's for anyone who's ever had to choose between their heart and their spine. The drive back to San Francisco was a battlefield of silence. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his jaw tight, while I stared out the window, the prenup folder burning a hole in my purse. "Lila, please," he finally said, his voice raw. "You don't have to do this. We can work it out." I turned to him, my anger a living thing. "Work it out? You sat there while your family treated me like a thief. You knew about the prenup and didn't warn me." "What's there to work out, Ethan?" His eyes flicked to me, pleading. "They're my family. I can't just—" "You can," I cut him off. "You just won't." He flinched, but I was done softening the truth. The man I'd loved, the one who'd charmed me with tacos and late-night code reviews, was crumbling under his family's weight, and I wasn't going to let him drag me down, too. Back at our loft, I packed a bag while Ethan paced, his voice rising. "You're throwing away everything we have over a piece of paper." I spun on him, my voice steady but sharp. "It's not the paper, Ethan. It's you. You chose them over me, over us. I deserve someone who fights for me." I grabbed my laptop and walked out, his pleas echoing behind me. I checked into a hotel in the Mission District, my heart racing as I locked the door. The city's hum outside felt alive, dangerous, like it was whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. I opened my laptop, half expecting another threatening email like the one that had warned me to abandon Spark Vibe or pay the price. Instead, I found a new message from Henry Tate, the lawyer handling my aunt's estate. "Miss Bennett, we need to discuss the sealed letter from Marianne Tate. It's urgent." The next morning, I met Henry at his sleek downtown office, the San Francisco skyline glinting through floor-to-ceiling windows. Henry was in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the air of someone who'd seen too many secrets to be surprised by anything. "Lila," he said, sliding a manila envelope across his desk, "your aunt left this for you. She insisted it only be opened by you in person." My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Marianne's handwriting elegant but urgent. "Lila, you're in danger. The wealth I've left you comes with enemies, people who will stop at nothing to control or destroy you. Trust no one, especially those closest to you. Check the safety deposit box at First Republic Bank, key enclosed. Be careful." A small brass key fell into my palm, cold and heavy. I looked up at Henry, my voice unsteady. "What enemies? Who was she afraid of?" He shook his head. "Marianne was paranoid in her final years, but she was brilliant. Her AI patents disrupted powerful players. She believed someone was after her, maybe the same people now targeting you." My mind flashed to the brake lines, the office break-in, the black SUV. "Targeting me?" I asked, my throat dry. Henry leaned forward. "Your startup, Spark Vibe. It's in the same space as Marianne's work. Cybersecurity, AI, data protection. You're stepping on toes, Lila. And with this inheritance, you're a bigger threat." I clutched the key, my thoughts spiraling. Was this about Cyberpeak, the rival firm, or the Warwicks, or both? I left Henry's office with more questions than answers, the weight of Marianne's warning pressing on me like a physical force. I drove to First Republic Bank, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting that black SUV to reappear. The safety deposit box held a USB drive and a note. "If you're reading this, you're stronger than I was. This drive contains evidence of who's after us. Use it wisely." I slipped the USB into my bag, my heart hammering. Back at the hotel, I hesitated before plugging it into my laptop, my coder's paranoia kicking in. And what if it was a trap, malware designed to destroy me? But curiosity won. The drive contained encrypted files, financial records, emails, and a grainy video. I cracked the encryption in an hour, my fingers flying over the keyboard. The video showed a blurry meeting in a boardroom, voices muffled but recognizable. Richard Warwick and a man I didn't know, discussing a problem named Marianne Tate. "He's getting too close," Richard said. "We need to neutralize her." The other man replied, "Like we did with her partner?" My blood ran cold. Marianne's business partner had died in a car accident years ago. Or so I'd read. Was it no accident? I called Maya, my best friend, and spilled everything over coffee at a crowded cafe, my eyes scanning for anyone watching. "Lila, this is insane," Maya said, her voice low. "The Warwicks aren't just snobs. They're dangerous. That SUV, the death threat, your office, it's them." I wanted to argue, to believe Ethan wasn't part of this, but the evidence was piling up. "What about the USB?" she asked. "What's in those files?" I shook my head. "Financials, mostly. Transfers to offshore accounts, some linked to Cyberpeak, and that video, it's not enough to prove anything, but it's damning." Maya grabbed my hand. "You need to go to the police, or the FBI. This is bigger than you." But I wasn't sure who to trust. Marianne's warning echoed, "Trust no one." That night, I got another email, this one from an anonymous account. "Drop Spark Vibe, or you'll end up like your aunt." My hands shook as I forwarded it to Claire Voss, my lawyer. She called immediately. "Lila, this is a credible threat. I'm contacting a private investigator I trust, but you need to lay low." I didn't want to hide. I wanted to fight. Spark Vibe was my life, my proof that a girl from Boise could make it in Silicon Valley, but the danger was escalating, and I was running out of time. Eleanor's calls became relentless, each voicemail sharper than the last. "Lila, the wedding planner is waiting. We can't proceed without the signed agreement." I ignored her, but the pressure was suffocating. Ethan texted begging to talk, but I couldn't face him, not yet. I needed answers, and the USB was my only lead. I spent hours digging through the files, uncovering payments from Warwick Ventures to Cyberpeak, dated just before my office was trashed. There was also a memo about acquiring Spark Vibe's IP at any cost. The pieces were falling into place, but the puzzle was still incomplete. Then came the tech conference. I was set to pitch Spark Vibe to a room of investors, a make-or-break moment for my startup. I'd spent weeks preparing, my slides polished to perfection. As I stepped onto the stage, the screen flickered, and instead of my presentation, a montage of lies appeared. Doctored photos of me with shady figures, fake headlines accusing me of fraud, even a forged email claiming I'd stolen Spark Vibe's code. The audience gasped, phones snapping photos as my reputation unraveled in real time. I froze, my voice caught in my throat, until a tech assistant yanked the plug. "Hacked," he muttered. But I knew better. This was no random cyber attack. It was personal. I stumbled off stage, my face burning, and locked myself in a bathroom stall, fighting tears. My phone buzzed with notifications. Tweets, articles, LinkedIn posts, spreading the lies faster than I could counter them. I called Maya, my voice shaking. "They're trying to destroy me." She was furious. "This is the Warwicks, Lila. They want your startup gone, and they're using every dirty trick." I knew she was right, but the betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Ethan had been at the conference, in the front row, his face unreadable as the screen lit up with slander. Had he known? Was he part of this? I met with Nora Klein, my financial advisor, the next day. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, her office a fortress of calm in the chaos. "Lila, sudden wealth is a magnet for trouble," she said, reviewing my $50 million 0-cents portfolio. "Don't make rash moves, protect your assets, and don't tell anyone about the money, not even Ethan." I nodded, but the secret was eating at me. I wanted to confront Ethan, to see if he'd stand by me or crumble again. But first, I had to face the Warwicks one last time. Eleanor's final dinner invitation came with an ultimatum: sign the prenup or the wedding was off. I decided to go, not as the scared girl they'd ambushed before, but as a woman with power and a plan. I used my new wealth to buy a custom black dress, its sleek lines screaming confidence, and drove to Napa alone, leaving Ethan's texts unanswered. The estate was as imposing as ever, but I walked in with my head high, the USB drive hidden in my purse like a loaded gun. The Warwicks were assembled like a tribunal. Eleanor in pearls, Richard with his phone, Victoria smirking beside her husband Todd. Ethan sat at the far end, his eyes locked on me, a mix of hope and dread. Dinner was a rerun of the last ambush, their conversation a maze of elite references I couldn't follow. I let their barbs slide, my focus on the moment I'd been waiting for. When dessert was cleared, Eleanor produced the prenup folder, her smile razor-thin. "Lila, I trust you've come to your senses." All eyes turned to me, the air thick with expectation. I took a slow sip of water, savoring their anticipation. "I've thought about it," I said, my voice steady. "And I'm not signing." Eleanor's laugh was brittle. "Don't be ridiculous, dear. This is how Warwick marriages work." I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "I'm not marrying into your family. Not now, not ever." Gasps rippled around the table. Ethan's voice broke the silence, strained. "Lila, please!" I cut him off. "You had your chance, Ethan. You chose silence when I needed you to fight." I turned to Eleanor. "Your prenup isn't just unfair. It's a trap. My lawyer called it one of the worst she's seen. It's not about protecting your wealth. It's about controlling me." Victoria scoffed. "So it's about the money after all." I laughed, a sound that startled them. "No, Victoria, it's about respect, something your family doesn't understand." I paused, letting the moment build. "And for the record, I don't need your money. My Aunt Mary and Tate left me $50 million, 0 cents. I'm not the nobody you thought." The room froze. Eleanor's mouth opened, then closed. Richard's phone hit the table with a clatter. Victoria's glass slipped, spilling champagne. Ethan stood, his voice hoarse. "Lila, why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him, my heart breaking but resolute. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stood up to your family if I had money? Because if that's what it takes, you're not the man I thought you were." Eleanor recovered, her voice smooth but strained. "This changes things. We can renegotiate, make it fairer." I held up a hand. "There's nothing to negotiate. I'm done." I stood, placing the engagement ring on the table, its diamond catching the light. "I loved you, Ethan. Not your name, not your money. Just you. But you let your family treat me like dirt, and that's not love." I walked out, their silence trailing me like a shadow. As I drove away, the USB drive in my purse felt heavier, its secrets a ticking bomb. The next week was a whirlwind. I moved into a secure penthouse in the Mission District, its high-tech locks and bulletproof windows a necessity now. I hired a private investigator, recommended by Claire, to dig into the USB's files. He confirmed my worst fears. Warwick Ventures had funneled money to Cyberpeak, orchestrating the sabotage of Spark Vibe. The video was the key. Richard's words about neutralizing. Marion hinted at something far darker than corporate games. I took the evidence to the FBI, my hands shaking as I handed over the drive. "Be careful," the agent warned. "These are powerful people." Ethan showed up at my new office, a bouquet of lilies, my favorite, in hand. "I have cut ties with my family," he said, his eyes pleading. "I was wrong, Lila. I should have fought for you." I wanted to believe him, but the timing was too convenient. "You found your courage after I got rich," I said, my voice cold. "That's not love. It's opportunism." He left, defeated, but I knew the Warwicks weren't done. A week later, my investigator called with news. Warwick Ventures was collapsing, a failed merger exposed by leaks I'd orchestrated through industry contacts. The family's empire was crumbling, and I'd played a part in its fall. I poured my energy into rebuilding Spark Vibe, hiring top coders and securing new investors with my inheritance. The company soared, our app now protecting thousands of businesses. I launched a scholarship for underrepresented tech founders, channeling my wealth into something meaningful. At a tech summit months later, Eleanor approached me, her regal air diminished. "You've done well, Lila," she said, her voice tight. "We underestimated you." I nodded, no longer needing her approval. "Life's full of surprises," I replied. She mentioned Ethan's broken engagement to a new socialite, but I felt only relief. I was free. That night, I sat with my new boyfriend, a coder named Sam, on my penthouse balcony, the city lights below us. He was different, grounded, principled, proud of my success without being threatened. "You faced down Silicon Valley royalty," he said, grinning. "That's badass." I laughed, leaning against him. The $50 million 0 cents hadn't changed me. It had amplified me, giving me the freedom to live authentically. The Werricks, the sabotage, the threats, they'd tried to break me, but they'd only made me stronger. My worth wasn't in my bank account or anyone's approval. It was in the fire I'd walked through and the woman I'd become. Have you ever had to fight for your place in a world that tried to shut you out? What did you learn about yourself? Share below, and if this story hit you, keep following. The game's not over yet.